Hey folks, how's it going? Chris here, and today I wanted to get a message out to you folks about some of the mismessaging that's going on out there around agriculture, regenerative agriculture, and the tearing down of certain styles of farming that's happening out there.
Farming method. If you're using monocrop agriculture and you're using industrialized farming methods and you're controlling enormous swaths of land with only one crop, that is totally unnatural, doesn't exist anywhere in nature. And in order to do that, you have to poison everything else. You have to kill all the animals, you have to poison the land, you have to strip the topsoil, you have to use industrialized fertilizer. You can't grow things that way normally. That's why there's only, using these industrialized methods, there's only like 60 more crop circles that they can do, or crop cycles they can do. Like, there's only a certain amount of topsoil that's even left.
Just that statement alone, I think, is misleading to folks, because we have monocrops on our farm, and we also have cover crops on our farm, and we also do intercropping on our farm, and we've grazed cover crops, and we've done cash crop grazing on our farm as well. We've tried a lot of different things and had success with different things, and we're constantly trying new things on our operation, but we still do monocrops. The fact that I use this tractor, does this make me industrialized agriculture? I don't truly know what that means, but I feel like I get lumped into this category of this industrialized monocrop agriculture that isn't a style like Joel Salatin or White Oak pastures. That bothers me a little bit, because I think a lot of those style farms are still reliant on farms like us. I supply to local mills that sell local feed to people that want to do Salatin style farming in their backyard. They don't have access to a combine, they don't have access to drills or acreage to grow grains on. We can simply just grow grains more efficiently on more acres than somebody can on a quarter acre in their backyard. It just doesn't make sense for them to own the equipment to do that. So we try to grow things as holistically as we can, given our current ag model that we have right now. The assumptions around us not having any animals, that we're kicking all of the animals off of our land in order to grow these annual crop farms, isn't true either. We have multiple deer going through our property all year, and elk and birds, pheasants, geese. We have dozens and dozens of hunters that are lined up every year trying to get permission to go hunting on our ground because of the access to wildlife, and we try to manage that. Not only that, we also bring in apiaries that come in and make honey when the flowers are blooming on the different crops and stuff that we have. We're also trying to manage and build our topsoil, not degrade it and scrape it off. And I hope through this video to, educate some people to have more nuanced discussions and to really have positive discussions around agriculture, how it can get better. I'm not saying that agriculture can't afford to get any better or improve, but some of these comments, like the one I showed here, it's just not helpful. And the thing is the guy that shared this comment, I like watching his podcast. It's a fantastic podcast. He has a wide range of people and stuff on there, and he formed these opinions just because that was his belief and his understanding of what he had going on at the time. And it brought some awareness to me, especially when people started getting back to me on my operation. How come you don't do this like Salatin? How come you don't farm like White Oak pastures? Can you do that instead? There's a time where I considered farming like those guys, and I ran the numbers, and I was really surprised on how it worked out, and how I don't think that you can feed the world with Salatin's method or White Oak pastures. I think that agriculture has made some huge advancements that allow us to feed 7 billion people in the world. Okay, folks, hopefully you can see this, but I'm going to go through some numbers really quick on what this looks like, growing wheat acres versus growing pasture-raised beef on our operation. So essentially, growing wheat like we're doing right now, we're going to do an acre-to-acre comparison. Right now we have about 50 bushel average yields for our wheat crop. 50 bushels times 60 pounds per bushel equals 3,000 pounds an acre. 3,000 pounds times 1,580 calories per pound in that wheat works out to 4.7 million calories. 4.7 million calories for the wheat operation. Okay, we got 4.7 million calories for wheat. Okay, let's go to the beef operation. So the beef operation, that gets figured out in animal units. One animal unit be roughly 1,000 pounds. a really high stocking rate for our area, if you're just grazing pasture, it's not irrigated or anything like that, a really high stocking rate would be 1 animal per 1 acre. We've looked at some comparison, guys that ranch in our area and that are grazing pasture land, that kind of thing, and it's more like 1 animal per 2 to 3 acres. And so this is weighted really heavy in the animal's favor. So let's just say that we're taking that 1,000-pound animal to harvest, that 1 acre sustaining it, but we don't harvest the whole animal. Only about 60% of that animal is actually going to go towards, processing for food, the hanging weight of the carcass. So we end up with 600 pounds per acre. And then we know that meat is roughly 1,150 calories per pound. So that works out to 690,000 calories per acre. Okay, 690,000 compared to 4.7 million. That's a lot. But this is actually worse than that, because we still have to factor in that we're not harvesting our whole herd when we harvest those animals. What happens is you have to raise a steer. A steer has to, go through the pregnancy process. You have to feed the mama cow the whole time she's pregnant, and then you have to feed the mama cow while she's raising that steer and then weaning that steer, and then you still have to get that steer to weight. We factored a reasonable harvest rate into this at 30% of your herd, because if you sure, you could take every steer from every mama cow, but then there's issues of, sometimes mama cow didn't get bred. And so you still have to feed that mama cow for the next breeding cycle, right? On top of that, you also have to factor in that these steers are going to be grazed on, because they're on a pasture grazing system. It takes 18 months to 2 years to get a steer to weight. So we factored in this 30% harvest rate. 30% of the herd is actually what gets harvested per year, not the whole herd. So you take this animal unit number that we came up with, 690,000 times 30%, you end up with 207,000 calories per acre. Now let's just say we're doing everything the way Joel Salatin teaches in white oak pastures, and after we run our cows, we're gonna run sheep, and we're gonna stack a chicken enterprise on top of that. It's not gonna be as good. The cows are gonna eat most of the food that's out there, but we've been told that we can run sheep with very little impact after the cows. Let's just say we can add another 50,000 calories to this by running some sheep afterwards, and let's add another 20,000 calories to this because we're gonna run, say, a laying hen operation behind that as well. They're gonna, scratch through the cattle dung and everything like they teach in these regenerative styles. We end up with 277,000 calories per acre. We have anywhere from a 20 to 22 times difference in the amount of calories produced per acre. I'm sorry, but this number here is not enough calories to feed the world. These calories here are dependent upon those calories. And essentially, grain conversion works out to being more efficient than grassland production, just in terms of the amount of volume that's produced, because in the grassland production, there's a lot of fiber coming out the cow. I did not say that this is, that the wheat acres are healthier for the soil, or I did not say that these calories are more nutritious than these calories are. But the disparity in calories produced, all of these agricultural systems need each other, right, in order to remain sustainable, cost-effective for the world, productive. It's really a lot more complicated than just saying that we need to convert all of our wheatland acres, cropland acres into pasture systems and become regenerative and sequester all the carbon. It's a lot more difficult than that, especially when it comes to feeding the world. This number right here, this 22 times difference in production value of calories is a big number, and that number matters. That's what I'm saying. And let me be clear, I support all styles of regenerative agriculture. I think that it's fantastic what Salatin's done with his operation and what White Oak's done with their operation. I don't think that everybody should do what it is that they're doing on their operation, given the numbers that I've ran and my understanding of how these particular styles of regenerative agriculture work. I also don't think that, the people that do that style of farming should be tearing down other styles of agriculture. I don't think that that's helpful. And I don't think that people who have, listened to a certain podcast about a style of regenerative agriculture and somebody's opinions based on that style of farming should then go and judge other farms based on what they think they know from a podcast. If anything, go and ask a farmer in your area why he does what he does, and I'm sure you'll find a whole list of issues that farmer is struggling with that you never even considered. And let me clarify what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that current agricultural styles can't stand to improve. I believe that we're always in a state of improvement, and we're always going to be in a state of improvement, and that's really exciting for the future. Our farm has always been in a state of improvement. Since I can remember, since being a little kid, we've always been trying to innovate and get better. And if we notice things getting worse on our farm, we made changes to try and fix it. Especially if it came to say eroding our fragile topsoil that we have on our operation. We're in an area that doesn't have very deep topsoil, so we need to do what we can to protect what we have. I'm also not saying that we shouldn't graze animals. I think we should graze animals. I think we should totally graze animals where it definitely makes sense to graze animals where we can't grow crops. It makes sense to graze areas especially for fire control, undergrowth control, all those different things. It makes sense to graze in those areas. And it even makes sense to graze in croplands in certain settings. It makes sense to graze grass waterways and, the areas where, that are typically unproductive land. It makes a lot of sense to graze those areas. And I know that ranchers and people in the livestock industry do what they can to work with, bureaus of land management and state agencies and try to, manage those lands to the best of their abilities also. And so I think that it makes sense to graze animals, and I support those industries. And I'm not saying that plant-based diets, or any diet for that matter, is the way to go. I support people eating beef. I've done a carnivore diet. I've done a half-assed vegetarian diet. I felt the best on the carnivore diet. I think that, meat in your diet is a good thing based on my experience in eating different types of food. I just don't think that everybody should be on that diet in order for us to be sustainable and feeding everybody around the world. Based on what I've learned about calories and calorie conversion, it makes a lot of sense for people to have plants in their diet and have a balanced plate when they're sitting down and eating a meal. What I am saying is that if you're an annual crop farmer, cropland farmer, and you're feeling this pressure that the style of agriculture that you're doing isn't good enough, I'd encourage you to pump the brakes a little bit, reassess the situation, look at what you have going on in your operation, what other people in your industry are possibly doing to make their operations more sustainable, more regenerative, and understand that you still have a place in this marketplace, and what you're doing right now on your farm matters. You're working really hard to contribute to our society, and us as farmers have had a really tall order put on us. We've been asked since the 1940s to go from feeding 18 people per farmer to 160 people per farmer. And I don't even know if those numbers are actually that accurate. I'm also trying to say to guys like Joe Rogan, guys like myself, guys that are in the working class, really respect. I know that Joe Rogan was a really hardworking individual in his younger years and still works hard to this day in what he does. And he's a big advocate of the carnivore diet. And if everybody was to go on a carnivore diet, that's a lot of meat that we need to feed everybody. Telling people that, industrialized monocrop agriculture is ruining our planet isn't helping anything. And if you want to get maybe a little bit broader view, there's some different guys that you could have on there and chat about the struggles that they have on their own operation and maybe why they grow what they grow on their own operation. There's guys out there like Millennial Farmer, another Iowan farmer, myself. There's multiple people out there that can share with you plenty of struggles in agriculture and what some of the struggles from those industries look like before you go tearing down the industries that we participate in to bring grains to the beef industry so that they can produce the food that you so strongly advocate for. Basically, my beliefs are that it will take all styles of agriculture doing their best to steward the land to bring quality, cost-effective products to the market with enough abundance to feed the world for generations to come. I see a bright future for annual crop farms with regard to regenerative practices being implemented, as well as the animal industry making huge strides to restore desertified lands with methods like Alan Savory has explained. It makes total sense to graze animals on those lands that otherwise couldn't sustain growing crops. I hope you folks out there found this message helpful, and we'll try to cover this topic more in depth in the future. For today, that's all we have. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, thanks for watching.